ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ
ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤਿ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ
ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ
ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤਿ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤਿ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤਿ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ
ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ
ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤਿ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤਿ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ
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 ਕਰਮ ਨ ਜਾਨਾ ਨਾਹਿਨ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਕੈ ਅੰਚਲ ਲਾਵਹੁ ਬਿਖਮ ਨ ਦਈ ਜਾਏ ਤਰਣੀ ਗਿਆਨ ਧਿਆਨ ਕਿਛ ਕਰਮ ਨ ਜਾਣਾ ਸਾਰ ਨ ਜਾਣਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਜਿਨ ਕਲ ਰਾਖੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਜੋਰ ਮੈਂ ਗੂੰਗਾ ਕਹਤਾ ਹੂੰ ਤੇਰਾ ਸਦਕਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਸ਼ਰਨ
ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਤੀਰਥ ਤਪ ਦਇਆ ਦਤ ਦਾਨ ਜੇ ਕੋ ਪਾਵੈ ਤਿਲ ਕਾ ਮਾਨ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਮਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਭਾਉ ਅੰਤਰਗਤ ਤੀਰਥ ਮਲ ਨਾਉ ਸਭ ਗੁਣ ਤੇਰੇ ਮੈਂ ਨਾਹੀ ਕੋਏ ਬਿਨ ਗੁਣ ਕੀਤੇ ਭਗਤ ਨ ਹੋਏ ਸਵਾਸਥ ਆਥ ਬਾਣੀ ਬਰਮਾਓ ਸਤ ਸੁਹਾਨ ਸਦਾ ਮਨ ਚਾਓ ਕਵਨ ਸੋ ਵੇਲਾ ਵਖਤ ਕਵਨ ਕਵਨ ਥਿਤ ਕਵਨ ਵਾਰ ਕਵਨ ਸੇ ਰੁੱਤੀ ਮਾਹੋ ਕਵਨ ਜਿਤ ਹੋਆ ਆਕਾਰ ਵੇਲ ਨ ਪਾਈਆ ਪੰਡਿਤੀ ਜੇ ਹੋਵੈ ਲੇਖ ਪੁਰਾਣ ਵਖਤ ਨ ਪਾਇਓ ਕਾਦੀਆ ਜੇ ਲੇਖਨ ਲੇਖ ਕੁਰਾਨ ਥਿਤ ਵਾਰ ਨ ਜੋਗੀ ਜਾਣੈ ਰੁਤ ਮਾਹੋ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਜਾ ਕਰਤਾ ਸਿਰਠੀ ਕਉ ਸਾਜੇ ਆਪੇ ਜਾਣੈ ਸੂਈ ਕਿਵ ਕਰ ਆਖਾ ਕਿਵ ਸਾਲਾਹੀ ਕਿਉ ਵਰਨੀ ਕਿਵ ਜਾਣਾ ਨਾਨਕ ਆਖਣ ਸਭ ਕੋ ਆਖੈ ਇਕ ਦੂ ਇਕ ਸਿਆਣਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵੱਡੀ ਨਾਈ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਕਾ ਹੋਵੈ ਨਾਨਕ ਜੇ ਕੋ ਆਪੋ ਜਾਣੈ ਅੱਗੇ ਗਿਆ ਨਾ ਸੋ ਹੈ ਤੀਰਥ ਤਪ ਦਇਆ ਦਤ ਦਾਨ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਪਤਿਤ ਪਾਵਨ ਭਗਤ ਵਛਲ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦੇ ਖਜ਼ਾਨੇ ਜੋਤ ਰੂਪ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀਓ। We're blessed again to be gathered here to continue learning and hoping to attain Brahm Gyan, which is given to us through Sri Japji Sahib, which is the discussion between Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji and the Siddhs. We have reached the 21st Pauri of Sri Japji Sahib. Last time the Siddhs learnt about the effects of Naam and how Naam is the only thing that can cleanse and burn away our previous actions, our karams that have been collected and have formed the paralabd. The only way to burn those actions is the repetition of the name of the Lord given to us by the Panj Pyare, the form of Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji, when they prepare the Amrit and they administer it to us. The Siddhs continue the discussion this time round and they ask Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji that you've told us about Naam and how Naam cleanses the karam, burns away the karam, so we can purify ourselves and become one with the Lord God Vaheguru. But what about other things that we do in this life? What about going to pilgrimages? What about donations that we do? What about the different actions that we do, different yogic poses, different tapasyas? What about those things? Do they not have any effect on taking us closer to the one Lord? Do they not have an effect on breaking from the 8.4 million lives? Are they of any use? So this week the discussion begins with that question. Satnam Sri Vaheguru Sahib Ji Tirath Tap Daya Dat Dan. So the Siddhs ask the question. We go on pilgrimages, Tirath Yatre. We do penance at those places. We do different types of tapasya, tapa. We show compassion. We show compassion in various ways. There is a religion, the Jaini Dharam, and what they do is they cover their mouth with a cloth so they don't breathe on, they don't take in any sort of ghee or any sort of things lying around, and in their minds they are doing compassion on every life form. They look down as they walk, trying not to step on anything. Now it's easy to look down and not to step on ants that we can see, but there's many creation which are so small and that I cannot see. But they live their lives constantly trying to avoid doing harm in any way to any part of Lord's creation. And for them, they feel that is compassion to that creation. So this is what the Siddhs asked. We show compassion in these kind of ways. Datta. Datta is the form of holding back your senses, your indriya. So we hold back our eyes from not looking at wrong things. We hold back our sense of hearing by not listening to wrongful things. We don't speak wrongful things. We don't touch or do anything with our sense of feeling. And that is to stop your indriya, that is datta. The Siddhs asked that question, what about those things? And dan. Dan meaning to give, to share in their wealth and to give to others who are needy. What about those actions? And Sadhguru Sahib Ji tells the Siddhs, Tirath tap daya dat dan. The type of tirath that you do, going to places of pilgrimage, where you go to these sacred rivers and you cleanse your outer body, but internally you are still partaking in falseness. You are not repeating the name of the Lord. You go to that place feeling that you've cleansed yourself of doing wrongful acts, wrong actions by sins that you do, but when you come back home you partake in those things again, so you're not necessarily cleansing yourself. The penance that you do, the tapasya that you do, is of no avail. The daya that you do, the compassion that you show, is not true compassion, because you feel you're being compassionate to these different forms of creation. This datta that you do, holding back your senses on the outside, but what about the inside? What about your mind? Have you stopped your mind from the inside to think about wrongful things? Have you stopped thinking about wrongful things? Are you thinking positive things? And the dana that you do, the giving that you do for different reasons. You don't give, like we mentioned last time, nishkam, without any hope of anything in return. You are giving nishkam. Are you giving nishkam, or are you giving for something? Are you donating in the hope that you receive something back, whether that be honor, fame, or even just giving in the name of the Lord, but asking for something materialistic? And Guru Sahib Ji continues to tell the Siddhs, these are the types of where you do tirath, tap, daya, dat, dan. And what happens then?
Je ko pave til ka man.
Je ko. So those who complete or partake in actions in the way that's just been described, what happens to them? Pave til ka man. They do receive a little bit of honor, but only a little bit, not a lot. Til ka, a small amount. They may become famous, they may become honored in the world by society for donating. They may feel that they've done compassion, people will talk about them. They've gone to a tirath yatra and they've cleansed themselves from those wrongful acts that they've done on that day, but still they haven't cleansed their soul, they haven't burnt away those karam. So they gained a small amount of honor. However, Guru Sahib Ji teaches us and tells the Siddhs how you attain true honor. And Guru Sahib Ji gives the answer to the Siddhs.
Tirath tap daya dat dan.
So tirath here, if we translate it in the deeper way, in a second way, we can translate tirath to mean pavitra, pure. The pure form, there's only one pure form, that pure form is Vaheguru. Tirath tap, the action to attain the pure form Vaheguru. That penance, that repetition of the name. Daya, compassion, true compassion. Now we've described compassion where you feel you're being compassionate, but the type of compassion is materialistic. It's part of the three gunas, the three characteristics of the world, Rajo, Tamo and Sato. It's not compassion for or truly for others. The type of compassion shown by the Sikhs many years ago at the time of Bhai Taru Singh. In those days, Bhai Taru Singh would prepare langar at his house and go into the jungles where the Singhs, the Sikhs, who were being sought after by the Mughals of the time, he would go and feed them in the jungles. And sometimes he would find Sikhs who wouldn't have ate for days, for weeks, for months. And the type of compassion a Gursikh has to show is one time when Bhai Taru Singh went into the jungle. He took his dokra on his head, the dokra carrying the prashade, and he went through his village, Bahulla Pind, where he was from, and he went into the jungles. And he found some Sikhs there. But at the same time as just about feeding them, going to feed them, he took them a message. He told them about many bibiyan, many women that had been kidnapped by those rulers. Many women that had been kidnapped, and those women were from not the Sikh faith but from the Hindu faith. That they'd been kidnapped and taken, and they were to be taken and sold. And those Sikhs at the time, this is the type of compassion a Gursikh has to show. They hadn't eaten for days, for weeks, but still they said to Bhai Taru Singh, you keep hold of that prashada. If it is written for us to eat it, we will come back. First, we must go and free those bibiyan from those who have taken them against their will. That is the type of compassion a Gursikh has to show. So they left Bhai Taru Singh, sent the prasada back, and actually freed all those bibiyan. And in those days, Singhs would do that constantly. Some of those Singhs even gave shahidi, not for themselves, but to fight against tyranny, to free others that were not necessarily from their community. They served all communities who were being oppressed by the oppressors, the rulers of the time. That is the form of compassion a Gursikh has to show. Not compassion for materialistic, not compassion showing off to others, but true compassion, knowing that they haven't eaten for days and weeks, and maybe they won't eat again because where they are going, they may not come back. But ultimately they know they are blessed by the one Lord, and by following his command, the command of Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji, to fight against oppression. They know they will break from the 8.4 million lives. They will gain the kushiyan of Guru Sahib Ji. They will gain the happiness and the blessings from the true, the one Lord, Akal Purkh Vaheguru. So they showed true compassion.
Dego
Datta. So datta meaning obviously to stop your indriya, your senses from doing wrongful acts. So not only stopping their external senses, they stop their internal senses within their mind. So they do not think wrongful acts, because forever in their mind is the thought of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. Forever on their mind is the longing of meeting the husband Lord Akal Purkh Vaheguru. Forever in their mind is breaking away from society, from the pressures of society, the pressures of the Panch Chor, and the longingness of being one with Vaheguru. So they stop all their senses, internal and external. And then when they donate, when they do dan, they don't do it for reasons. They give the swanda as ordered by Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji. They give 10% of their earnings to Guru Ki Golak. They give it to the Guru, not questioning where it is used, not questioning what happens to it, just putting it in the charan of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And what do they do it for? They don't ask for nothing in return, because they know they are going to be blessed. They know they are going to be given happiness, and all their prayers will always be answered. All their garbage, all their problems will always be sorted without even asking. Because Guru Sahib Ji gives that promise. If you become their child by partaking in the Amrit, then you are protected forever. Not just in this life, but for eternity. Because they take you on the path, they hold you by the hand, and they walk you all the way to that oneness, what we're all hoping for, to break out from the 8.4 million lives. So the true Guru Sikh would give, would do daan, would donate without asking for anything. They would do it with nishkam. So that is Guru Sahib Ji, Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is telling us that that is the type of Tirat, Tap, Daya, Dat and Dan that a Guru Sikh has to do. And then what happens to them? Now in the previous example, when Guru Sahib Ji is speaking to the Siddhs directly about their materialistic actions of Tirat, Tap, Daya, Dat, Dan, and Guru Sahib Ji said, if anybody does that, they gain honour, but tilaka being separate here, okay? So they only gain a small amount of honour, and that honour is only honour in the world. People may talk about them, they become a little bit famous. But those who don't do it for materialistic reasons, who do, as I've just described from the teachings of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, what happens to them? Jeko Pave, Jeko, those who do it that way, Pave, and this time we're going to put Tilaka together, Tilaka, one word. So they find Tilaka man. Tilaka we can translate to meaning a tilak. Now what is a tilak? Certain religions put a tilak on their forehead. Now that doesn't mean that that's what we do, we put a tilak on our forehead. That tilak is done on the forehead, and the forehead is the highest point. It's seen as the royal point, and that's where your crown goes, covers your forehead, crown goes on your head. It's the point, the Shromani, the highest point. And so what Guru Sahib Ji, what we're taking from this translation is, if you do Tirat, Tap, Daya, Dat, Dan, so Tirat, Tap, the repetition of the name to attain the Pavitra, the pure Lord Vaheguru, Daya, true compassion, holding your senses back, internal and external, and doing Dan, donating and giving with Nishkamata, you gain the Shromani, Tilka, the highest honour. And the highest honour is being one with the true Lord Vaheguru. You gain that. So we've got a choice. Do we do actions materialistically, or do we do actions without any asking, without any hope? Because really we know inside we don't need to hope for anything, because Guru Sahib Ji has promised us and will give us everything anyway. The Siddhs continue to ask, so if that's not the way, please explain to us again, what is the way to the true Lord?
Sunaya Manya Man Kita Pao.
So Guru Sahib Ji, this is a theme that we're learning and we're finding through Sri Japji Sahib. How do we attain, how do we become one with the Lord? And Guru Sahib Ji is telling us over and over, because maybe we don't realise, we cannot put that practically into our lives. We haven't yet started on the path. So Guru Sahib Ji is telling the Siddhs again, and they're telling us again. Sunaya, listen. The first stage is listening. Mannaya, the second stage is to believe. And then man, we're going to take that to act. Man kita. Yeah? So sunaya, to listen, mannaya, to believe, and man kita, to do, to act, to follow that command. And then what do you attain? Pao. Pao, the true Lord, the true Pao can be translated to Gyan, to knowledge and oneness with the Lord. True knowledge is Brahm Gyan. So the path, the true path, and the path to gain oneness is first by listening. When you start listening, you start believing, because you start understanding. You get blessed and you start understanding what you're listening to, what you're contemplating on. So you then start believing in it. And when you start believing in it, to truly believe in something is act on what it is saying and to follow that command. And that is the way to find the one Lord and to gain true Brahm Gyan. Now, why the emphasis on listening first? Now, just an example. If we're on the path to find something, if we go into a jungle, the only way we're going to find that thing using our senses, we won't be able to see them if somebody's lost in the jungle. We won't be able to feel them because we're nowhere near them. We won't be able to smell them because we're nowhere near them. We won't be able to taste them, obviously. And we can't see them because they're lost. Which sense picks up first? It's sound. If somebody's calling out, we can hear that sound. And that's why the listening is the most important. Because spiritually, we're so far away from Akal Purkh Vaheguru. We can't see them, we can't feel them, we can't taste them, we can't smell them. So the way to connect first is by listening. Now, I've talked about in the past about listening to the Gurbani. So the Gurbani or the Kirtan or the Katha or whatever is being recited, whether we're reciting it or whether we're listening, whether we're hearing it in the Gurdwara, we listen and concentrate on it. We have to listen to it. But let's take this another way. Let's say we're trying to listen to Vaheguru on the inside. So if we concentrate on the inside, it said that there's a sound, the sound current that goes within inside of us that is on the frequency, if you will, of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And we have to intune ourselves to tune into that frequency so we can listen to it and connect to it. By repeating the name of the Lord, we are matching up that frequency. And originally we start repeating the name, and then after a while, what happens? We start hearing the name from inside. And it develops. That's why Gurbani tells us, Gurmukh Rom Rom Harte Ave. Our whole body starts reciting from the inside. Now, they say the sound comes from where we say our tunni. Tun actually means sound, which is our belly button. So from behind our belly button, there's a sound, that current that goes upwards. And we have to connect to that sound current. And the only way to connect to that is if we recite that sound so we can match it up. And so we start by reciting the Vaheguru Mantra. And when we recite it, we listen to it. And we're listening out for when that matches. And when it matches, we have then started to very quickly develop spiritually because we found that sound, and then that sound is what is going to lead us to Vaheguru. Just like we're looking in this jungle for somebody who's lost, we connect to the sound and we then follow that sound. And once we've connected, we can start following. So that's why it's important to listen in the first stage. Very, very important. So not just listening to the teachings, but also listening when meditating. We don't meditate quietly. We say the complete Shabad, Vaheguru. It's got 4 sounds. Va, He, Go, Ru. We concentrate on the sound when we're meditating. We listen to that sound and we connect to it, because when the frequency connects, that frequency, that sound inside saying Vaheguru will lead us to Vaheguru. And that's why it's very, very important to listen. And the Siddhs ask that question, the path to Vaheguru, and again, Guru Sahib Ji is telling us, Suneya, Manneya, Mankita. So Suneya is Sravan, Manneya is Mannan, and Mankita is Nidyasan. To listen, to believe, to act and follow the teachings, to gain true knowledge, Brahm Gyan, the loving Sarup, Akal Purkh Vaheguru.
Antargat Tirath Malan.
And then the Tirath, that place of pilgrimage where you're going to cleanse yourself. Where are you going? Guru Sahib Ji said Antargat. Antar meaning inside. You're on the path of pilgrimage to your soul. That is the pilgrimage you are on to break from this 8.4 million life cycle. We're on a pilgrimage to find God. And it's the inside pilgrimage that we should be going on. And how do we continue walking on that path? Malam now. Now here means to Ishnan. By repeating the name, we are cleansing, we are burning away the karam, we are cleansing ourselves from all our previous actions, and we are stepping step by step on the pilgrimage to become one with Vaheguru. If we take this a little bit further, Antargata. Antar can also be translated to mean no difference. Koi antar nahi. So there's no difference between the two. And when we repeat that name of the Lord and we go on that pilgrimage, then there becomes no difference between us and Akal Purkh Vaheguru. Because our actions have been completely burnt away from our previous lives, all that remains is the pure form soul, the Atma, which is the pure form of Paramatma. There's no difference. It's just like the pure water mixing back. You can't tell the difference between water, pure water in a glass, and pure water in the ocean. They're both pure, they're exactly the same. So there's no antar, there's no difference between those, because you've continued on that path of spirituality by burning, by cleansing those karmas.
Sab gun tere main nahi koi.
So the Siddhs asked Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, so those who are on that path, don't they get no ego? Don't they get excited? Don't they get pride in going on that path and reaching oneness? And Guru Sahib Ji says, no, those people on that path, those Sikhs, those Sevaks of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, what they say, Sab gun tere. Gun meaning the virtues of God, the blessings, Sab gun tere, they're all Vaheguru's. Main nahi koi. Nothing is of mine. All the blessing is from Akal Purkh Vaheguru. With their blessings, I can walk on this path. With the blessings of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, we can walk on this path. We cannot walk by ourselves. We cannot walk with the direction of society, because society walks us in a different path. We only can walk on this path through the blessings of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, through taking on their virtues. We ourselves cannot do anything.
Vena gun kite bhagat na hoye.
And without those blessings, bhagat na hoye, bhakti, that devotional worship cannot happen. Without that upkar, without that blessing of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, we cannot go nowhere. We can come to the Gurdwara constantly, but when we come to the Gurdwara, what happens? We start talking in the sangat. We don't concentrate on what is being said. Our ears might be listening, but on the inside, we don't take anything in. Why? Because we haven't been blessed. We haven't been given that blessing to do that bhakti, to partake in that devotional worship. We need Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the form of Akal Purkh Vaheguru on this earth, to bless us, so we can take part in that bhakti. We can take part in step-by-step walk to oneness with Vaheguru. Otherwise, we end up in this life cycle. No matter how many actions we do, we're thinking about this body, the actions, no matter how many actions of pilgrimages, tirath, penance, tapa, daya, compassion, datta, stopping our senses, dan, donations. Doesn't matter how much of that we do, if we don't get the blessings, we cannot do bhakti, because then we are only doing those for materialistic things. We are not doing those in Nishkamata. At this point, the Siddhs slightly changed the topic of conversation, and they asked about creation and how everything was created, how the world was created, and the Siddhs asked how the world was created, and Guru Sahib Ji continues the discussion.
Swasta ath bani baramao.
Swasta can be translated to Kalyan Sarup. Kalyan meaning the form of Vaheguru who does our Kalyan. In other words, who breaks us from the 8.4 million lives and brings us back into themselves. So we talked about different names of Vaheguru that describe their qualities, and this is another one, Swasta, Kalyan Sarup, the form of God who, it's not a different form of God, so I don't want anybody to misunderstand that. We don't believe in many different forms of God. It's the quality of God, I should say, that Shakti, that power that takes us and breaks us from the 8.4 million lives and takes them within themselves. Swast Ath Bani Barmao. How was this all created? Through the word. Through the word. Oankar Brahma Utpat, Oankar Brahma Jin Chitta. So through that word Oankar, everything was created. And that's why we hear that at the start of Japji Sahib. Ik Oankar. There is one Lord who is the creator. And through that word Oankar, everything was created in an instant.
Sat Sohan Sada Man Chao.
And then the Sid's asking further, well, when a mother and father, when a mother gives birth to a child, those parents grow older, their form changes. What about the form of Vaheguru? Has that changed after creation? After creation has developed, does Vaheguru change? And Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji continues, Sat Sohan. No, Akal Purkh Vaheguru forever remains true, Sat. Sohan, Sobnik, beautiful, forever, Sada, Man, Chao. Chao meaning Ananda Swarup. Yeah? Sada, Man, Chao. So they're always in their blissful form. They're always truthful. Ad Sach, Jugad Sach, Happy Sach, Nanak Hosi, Pi Sach, Sohan, they're forever beautiful. So Vaheguru has never changed. From before the beginning of the ages, right at the start, right when they started, we can't even contemplate that. Because the Sids just ask those questions next. So what about at the start? And the Sids ask some questions now and develop this topic of creation.
Kavan Suvela Vakat Kavan Thit Kavan Var.
Kavan Sovela Vakt Kavan. Kavan means when, what. It's a question. So the Sid's asking questions now. Kavan Sovela. What was the time when creation happened, when God created everything? When God created himself? Did God create himself? When God created all these universes? Vakt Kavan. Vakt and Vela translate to the same thing, if you will. It could say time. Vakt is actually from Farsi, and Vela is from sort of like the Hindi, sort of the old Indian languages. So Guru Sahib Ji is using a word for everyone's understanding. Kavan so Vela Vakt Kavan. What was the time? When was the moment that this was all created? Kavan Thit, Kavan Var. Now Thit can be translated to meaning the date. Okay, so we can have the first, the second, the third, the fourth. And Vakt, Kavan Thit, Kavan Var, and Var meaning the day. What was the date and what was the time? What was the date and what was the day?
Kavan Se Rutti Maho Kavan.
Kavan Se Rutti. Rutti meaning season. What was the season? Maho Kavan. What month was it?
Jit Hoa Akar.
Jit Hoa Akar. Akar meaning the form. Creation. What was the time? What was the date? What was the day? What was the season? What was the month? Now in Gurbani, the Ruts, there are 6 seasons in Gurbani. Guru Sahib Ji, when describing seasons, describes 6. I know we have 4 seasons now, we talk about in this day and age, spring, summer, autumn and winter, but in Gurbani describes 6 seasons, just an aside there for your knowledge. Okay, so the Sids ask Guru Sahib Ji, you talk about creation and God creating it in an instant, through his word, through Oankar, through that frequency, through that sound current. But what was the time, what was the date, what was the day, what was the season, what was the month when everything was created? And Guru Sahib Ji gave him the following answers.
Velana Paya Pandati.
Velna Paya Pandati. Pandits are the spiritual teachers of the Hindu faith. So going back to Vela and Vakt, using those words, because obviously in India at that time, there were predominantly 2 faiths. The Hindu faith and the Islamic faith. But when we translate Gurbani, and Guru Sahib Ji uses those examples a lot, but deeper, we are taking those as, if we take deeper translation, Guru Sahib Ji talks about the Semitic faiths, like if you want to call them the Western faiths, which include Christianity and Judaism. And then within Hinduism, Guru Sahib Ji is talking about the Eastern faiths. So obviously within Hinduism there's obviously Buddhism, Jainism and different faiths from the Eastern world. So Guru Sahib Ji, even though they constantly talk about Hinduism and Islam, because the Sikhs ask questions, the Islamic scholars ask questions, and Guru Sahib Ji replies in those forms, that Guru Sahib Ji deeper for us are talking about all faiths, Eastern and Western. So Vela Paya Panditi, the Pandits, the Hindu scholars, Vela Paya, they didn't find the time, they don't know the time. But how do we know they don't know the time? What's the proof? You could ask that question now. Well, how do we know they don't know the time? Because Guru Sahib Ji continues. Because if they knew the time, they would have put it into their spiritual texts, the Purans, the Veds, the Shastras, and nowhere it is written in their texts, their religious texts, when the world was created, when God created His creation.
Vaktana payo kadiya.
Vaktana payo kadiya. So they've used those words now, Ved for the Pandits and Vakt for the Kadiya, the Qajis, the Maulvis, the spiritual teachers for the Islamic faiths. And again, like I said, if we take this deeper, we're talking about the spiritual teachers for all the Semitic faiths. Vaktana payo. They don't know the time neither. But how do we know? How can we prove they don't know the time? Because you can ask me, well, how do you know they don't know the time? You could just be telling us that. And Guru Sahib Ji gives the same answer to the Sikhs as they're going to tell us now. Because if they knew the time, then they would have written it in the Quran. They would have written it in the Bible. They would have written it in the Torah. It's not written in any spiritual texts. The time, the month, the season, the date or the day when God created His creation. Even you, the Siddhs, in your yoga mat, your yoga mentality, Thetvar na jogi jana. You don't know the date, neither you know the day. And nobody in this world, Rut, the season, Maho, month, na koi, nobody knows anything. Nobody knows when God created His creation. Who knows?
Ja karta sir theek saje ape jane sui.
Ja karta the creator. Sir theek saje. Sirthi, srishti, creation. Kau saje. Karta, the one who created, who put this creation together, who put the universes and set them up. Ape jane soi. He Himself knows when and how He created His creation. So the Sikhs continued asking questions. And the next question they asked was, how? You talk about the hukam and how God is the giver of life, the organizer of life, and the deliverer of His creative life back into Himself. How does He do that? That was the next question the Sikhs asked. And a lot of these questions are questions that we have as we're going through life. We question ourselves, we think about these. And today Guru Sahib Ji is answering those for us also.
Kevakar akha.
Kevakar akha. So God being the giver, the form of creation, the creator, the creative power. Kevakar akha. You know, how can I tell you how God creates? How can I praise how God organizes? How can I tell you varni varnan karna? Kev jana, how God delivers? How can I tell you these things? Guru Sahib Ji tells the Siddhs that obviously we're learning from the previous Pankti that God only knows Himself. We don't really need to know how God does that, because we're not here to know how God does anything. We're here to sunaya, manaya, manikita pao. We're here to listen. We're here when listening and we start understanding to believe. And then when we start believing, we start following and acting on the command. That's what we're here to do. We're not here to know how and what and when. And at the same time, if we take this translation further, if Guru Sahib Ji here is taking those three forms, now the Hindu faith believe in Brahma as the creative form, Vishnu as the organizing form, and Shivji as the destructive, the delivering form. But Guru Sahib Ji in this Pankti, and we've heard this in the Panchapaudiya anyway, is saying, Give kar akha, even Brahma doesn't know. Give salahi, Vishnu doesn't know. Kyo varni give jana, even Shivji doesn't know. So even the Siddhs who believed in them would say, well, they're the greatest, those demigods. Surely they would know. And Guru Sahib is saying, even they don't know. Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, the form of Akal Purkh Vaheguru on this earth, obviously knows they are the form of God. But they're showing their humbleness and saying, taking this again a little bit further, Give Agar Akha, how can I express to you? Give Salahi, how can I praise him? Give Gyovarni, how can I describe it? Give Jana, who knows how all this works? Who knows how that hukam works?
ਨਾਨਕ ਆਖਣ ਸਭ ਕੋ ਆਖੈ ਇਕ ਦੂ ਇਕ ਸਿਆਣਾ.
And Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is telling us and telling the Siddhs, many people claim, Nanaka, Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji telling us, Akhan sab ko akhe. Everybody tries to describe ikdu ik siana. Ikdu ik means ikdu ik. So, jidda hundaya, like everybody is trying to jump over, pull somebody else back and explain themselves. That's what ikdu ik siana. Everybody's trying to be the clever one. If somebody's describing, someone like me will come and like, no, you're saying it wrong, this is how it is. Somebody will then stop me and say, no, this is how it is. That's what ikdu ik siana means. Everybody is trying to be the clever one. Everybody thinks they know. But Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is saying nobody knows. Why?
ਵੱਡਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵੱਡੀ ਨਾਈ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਕਾ ਹੋਵੇ.
Vadda Sahib, the great master. Vaddi Nai. Nai translates to Mehma. Mehma meaning his fame. Vaddi Nai. He's famous because he's the creator. He's famous not on this earth, not just in the Sikhs, not just in religious people. The one Lord Vaheguru is famous in all his creation, in all his universes. Kita Jaka Hove. Kita Jaka Hove. Whatever he does, that is what happens. So it's within his hukam. He knows what happens, how everything happens. Everything is in his hukam, is in his command.
ਨਾਨਕ ਜੇ ਕੋ ਆਪੋ ਜਾਣੈ ਅੱਗੇ ਗਿਆ ਨਾ ਸੋਹੈ.
And at the end of this body, at the end of this week's teachings, Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is saying, Je ko apo jana. Those, or if someone thinks within themselves, somebody like me trying to explain, trying to pass their knowledge, thinks that they know everything or they know these answers. Agga gaya na soha. Soha means to gain soba, to gain honor in the court of the Lord. Where do you gain that honor? Obviously in the court. Agga gaya na soha, na soha. So you don't gain that honor. You don't gain that soba. And Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji at the end is telling us, if anybody tries to describe and tries to say they know everything, they gain no honor in front of the Lord. They don't gain no honor in the court of the Lord, whether it be in this world, in his court, the court of Dhan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, or in the afterworld, if we want to call it the afterworld, when we're in the formless, when we're in front of Nirankar Swarup Vaheguru, we don't gain no honor. Just a quick sakhi at the end here. It doesn't necessarily link with the questions, but it sort of helps us understand about those who think they know everything. They don't get no honor. At the time of Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, there was a Sikh called Bhai Lalo Ji, and there was a rich person of that town called Malak Bago. And Guru Sahib Ji obviously would go on their travels, and they stayed at the house of this poor person, Bhai Lalo Ji, who was a carpenter by trade. And Malak Bago sent many messages to Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. Why are you living in that poor person? Come to my house, come to my mansion, eat food from me. And they sent messages 5 times over, and Guru Sahib Ji declined every time, staying in the house of the humble Bhai Lalo Ji. And then one day Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji answered the call and explained to Malak Bago why I'm eating prasada. And they picked up the prasada of the plate from the plate of Malak Pago, and they picked up a prasada from the plate from Bhai Laloji. Obviously, you know the Sakhi, and I'm coming to the main point. And they squeezed into the prasade, and the prasada out of Bhai Laloji came out milk, and when they squeezed the prasada of Malak Pago came out blood. And teaching us that living an honest life, working an honest living, kirt karke, following those teachings, naam japna, kirt karni, vand ke shakna, your prasada is like milk, and therefore it is more wholesome to eat. But it's not wholesome to eat prasada that is done by forcing people to work, by not doing kirt, not living an honest life, and that is not wholesome because it's like drinking blood. Now, the message I'm linking to this Pankti from that Sakhi is Malak Pago thought he knew everything, thought he was bigger than he actually was. But he didn't gain that soba in front of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. He didn't gain that honour because when his prasada was squeezed, blood came out. Although he was blessed at that time, and after that he lived an honest life, and after that he was a good Sikh of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. But it shows, even in our day-to-day lives, if we think we know everything, if we think we're better than others, we don't gain no soba, we don't gain that honour from the true Guru. So the Sakhi there is just telling us how to live our lives possibly, living humbly. So we have that opportunity to gain that honour and the blessings. But generally this week, the teachings, the messages were about creation, about how we don't need to get involved in who, what, where, when, why, those questions of creation. We all have those questions, but we don't need to be interested in them because the true message is to listen, to believe, and then to act on the teachings. And if we do that, we will gain oneness with the true Lord Vaheguru. We will be given Brahma Gyan, the knowledge of Vaheguru, and we'll break from these 8.4 million lives. If I've made any mistakes this week, I beg for forgiveness. I hope you bless me with the Brahma Gyan so I can deliver the teachings and the correct teachings so we can all learn. I pray to Akal Purkh Vaheguru that he blesses all with good Sikhi so we can live out the rest of our lives in this world one with Vaheguru. Deho sajna sishriyan jo hova sahib syo mel
Vadda Sahib vaddi nai Kita jaka hova Nanak je ko apao jana Agga gaya na so hai Vaheguru ji ka Khalsa Vaheguru ji ki Fateh.